Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to this 2019 budget debate. The budget, now several days old, has been digested by the Guyanese people, who at this time are unable to see how it will make their lives better. Mr. Speaker, indeed, this fifth budget of the coalition, like its predecessors, continue to push our people backward rather than taking them forward and upward. It is disappointing to say, Mr. Speaker, the confidence in the future the Guyanese people had prior to the coalition taking office has all but disappeared. While our people are uneasy, the administration at page 19 of the budget says it wants, and I quote, every family being able to afford a healthy lifestyle with all their basic needs of sustenance, shelter, and education being met, and where environmental responsibility and personal safety are paramount, end of quote. These are indeed lofty aspirations, but are we being taken there? We of the PPC and very many Guyanese are convinced that this is not the case. Our today realities are very, very different from the utopian paradise the government seeks to paint. This obviously is a glaring indication of the administration disconnect from the ordinary people. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other side need to step out from their ivory towers to see how the working people are faring. It is no secret that business has slowed to a near halt. Our markets have more vendors, Mr. Speaker, than buyers. Many of our children walk to school as their parents are unable to afford transportation. Crime stalks the land, and hardly anyone feels safe. Today, Mr. Speaker, hunger is knocking on many doors, and the growing numbers can ill afford to pay their bills. Such are our sad realities of today. We are told that this is the largest budget in the nation's history. Indeed, 300 billion is a large sum, and if properly utilized, it could do a lot for our heavily burdened people. This disturbing fact, however, is we, given our experience, have almost no confidence that this will really be the case. Mr. Speaker, in the life of this APNU AFC government, take it budget 29 into account, the government would have spent an astounding 1.2 trillion. To make a comparison, it took the last 7 years' budget, that is from 2008 to 2014 of the PPP administration, to spend a similar sum. But for that investment, the economy grew cumulatively by 28.2%. Old age pensioners receive increases in pension apart from water and electricity subsidies. School-aged children benefit from the $10,000 grant. Our hospital and health centers had an adequate supply of medicine. our workers were generally satisfied, apart from the all-round development our people witnessed. Under the APNU AFC, for that investment, we are promised 15.7% economic expansion. Our pensioners have lost their subsidies. Our children lost their grant. The hospital and clinics are often out of drugs. Thousands of Guyanese have been made jobless, and development has slowed down tremendously. Nothing for the workers, Comrade Speaker. From the workers' point of view, Budget 2019 really has nothing for them to be excited about, and is yet another indicator of the anti-working class demeanor of this administration. Comrade Speaker, not even one sentence in the minister's approximate 260-minute address referred to any plan to enhance workers' rights and protection. Indeed, there are quite a few matters to address, some requiring legislation or amendments to existing ones. But ignoring these realities, Comrade Speaker, the government is exposing, unfortunately, its lack of concern for the working people. Comrade Speaker, the administration also saw it necessary to allocate several $1 million to the Golden Jubilee of Republicanism in 2020. Indeed, it is a memorable moment in our country's history, and one will require celebration and reflection. But, Comrade Speaker, while monies are found to plan for celebrations more than a year away, I do not see the same attention given to the centennial anniversary of trade unionism, which will be celebrated in our country in a matter of weeks. This too is a momentous achievement for our people, more so for our workers. The administration's silence, Comrade Speaker, says, I'm mindful. The budget, Comrade Speaker, is not worker-friendly. Of the 28 budgetary measures proposed, only one concern a marginal improvement in our working people well-being. At the same time, there are several measures aimed at assisting the business sector, which are important, but we should remember, thriving businesses rely on people who can afford their goods and services. The glaring absence of equity, among other factors, could therefore negatively affect the intended objectives. The government, Comrade Speaker, is boasting about the adjustment to the income tax threshold, as if the Scrooge-like improvement was some grand concession. The fact that the administration has resorted to clutching at straws is yet another indication that the budget lacks any substantive policy to really alleviate our people's burden. Comrade Speaker, the increase in the tax threshold works out to workers receiving $47 more a day, which cannot even take care of the minibus fare, which I must add was increased by the administration after it adamantly rejected calls to reduce the tax on fuel. I wish to remind the government in the AFC column appearing on May the 3rd, 2015, Kaichou News, it was said that if elected, the APNU AFC government would increase the personal income tax, I quote, increase the personal income tax threshold to $100,000 in a phased approach, end of quote. we are, Comrade Speaker, I wonder what has happened to this promise. The budget, Comrade Speaker, on page 88 says, I quote, the wages and salaries of public servants will be increased in 2019 after discussions with the respective unions, end of quote. Comrade Speaker, permit me to emphasize, collective bargaining is not an option. It is an obligation which was enshrined in our statute book by the PPPC government. It was among the several rights that the PPC gave the workers of Guyana. Comrade Speaker, I also wish to remind the Minister that his government on page 25 of its manifesto said, and I quote, enforce the principles and laws governing collective bargaining, end of quote. Today, this commitment rings hollow. The government really, Comrade Speaker, has to stop putting its foot in its mouth. The minister also said on page 25 of his address that the government, and I quote, is committed to continuously improve wages and salaries of all public sector employees, end of quote. This general statement must be taken against what the GPU President Patrick Yard said reportedly in November the 15th, Guyana Times, that, and I quote, public servants are receiving poverty payments for their salaries, end of quote.
Tell them.
In fact, the minister boasting about 50,400 retroactive payment. Comrade Speaker, it works out to $138 a day, barely the price of a pint tart. Comrade Speaker, for me, it is sad to note that the sugar workers have received the worst treatment at the hands of this PNC AFC administration. Not even the days of the Bonham administration had sugar workers been treated as disdainfully as they are now.
Shame, Prakash.
Can you imagine, Comrade Speaker, while the government is trumpeting its paltry increases, it didn't give the sugar workers that. These workers did not get 1 blind cent in pay increase since the APNU AFC took office. It is baffling to understand, Comrade Speaker, why the sugar workers are being treated so shabbily. One cannot concede that this is plain I-pass and blatant discrimination by this anti-working class administration.
Shame, Prakash.
Our pensioners, another issue warranting attention, is the increase in the old age pension and public servants, public assistance. Comrade Speaker, I wonder whether the administration is not embarrassed to talk about its treatment of those entitled to such benefits. It seems clear to us that the administration shows scant regard for the country's elderly and vulnerable. The $100 per month increase works out to $32 per day.
What a shame.
What a shame.
What a shame.
Is this all the biggest budget in our history can afford? Redundant sugar workers. Comrade Speaker, the minister on the penultimate page of his address said inter alia, and I quote, having taken the tough decisions, end of quote, it appears that Minister Jordan has borrowed his colleague, Vice President Ramjatan, often used quip.
Oh, sure.
As he seemingly referred to the administration short-sighted decision to close 4 sugar estates and put 7,000 Guyanese workers out of work.
Shame on you, Prakash.
Today, Comrade Speaker, many of those rendered jobless have been unable to recover from that decision and are facing severe hardship.
Oh,
Increasingly, interestingly, the minister on page 61 of his address said that the sugar sector, and I quote, has huge potential for growth,
Oh, yes.
being pivotal to increasing household incomes, reducing unemployment, and ultimately lowering the poverty rate, end of quote.
I'll remember you have 5 minutes remaining.
So, if this is the case, Comrade Speaker, thank you. If this is the case, Comrade Speaker, why the government close the estate and create thousands of new poor? Thousands of new poor. Clearly this further serves to demonstrate the callousness of the decision to minimize the industry. Comrade Speaker, the sugar industry plays a pivotal role and touches the lives of tens of thousands of Guyanese. It is therefore disheartening to record the obvious confusion in the industry. The minister tells us by 2021 the industry will produce 145,000 tons of sugar, 48% more than what the industry is anticipated to produce this year. While we of the PP want the industry to succeed, the government approach has been hopscotching, to say the least. Comrade Speaker, the finance minister now tells us the massive production increase will be realized through the recapitalization plans contained in the Sugar Task Force 3-year plan for Gaisuko. But, Comrade Speaker, apart maybe from a selected few, no one has the plan that the minister speaks about, though we continue to hear about. In fact, the sudden news of a plan is a surprise to many, considering that President Granger in his address to the National Assembly on October the 18th said a plan was being drafted. Comrade Speaker, this so-called plan must be made public and for there to be a full, comprehensive discussion of it by the stakeholders. The new bridge. Comrade Speaker, as an MP representing Region 3, I recognize the 100 million has been allocated to evaluate proposal for the construction of a high-level 4-lane bridge. The latest allocation comes after reportedly 160 million was spent on a feasibility study that the PPC, Public Procurement Commission, pointed out improperly procured. Comrade Speaker, the new bridge, it seems, will come in conflict with Exxon Shore Base at Houston. In fact, during a recent visit to the identified site, it appeared to me that there is no space to accommodate the bridge unless billions are expended to acquire private property in that area. Indeed, those possible heavy costs before an inch of the bridge is actually built, it seems the toll will rival the charges that the Barbies Bridge was seeking to implement.
I remember you have 2 minutes remaining.
By way of conclusion, Comrade Speaker, I have to drop a piece of what I want to say. But let me move on. Comrade Speaker, Budget 2019 is unfit and improper. And it will not inspire Guyanese that better days are ahead. Indeed, it was felt that the government, recognizing this, the dire message from the local government election result, would have woken up and realized the dissatisfaction among Guyanese. Budget 2019 indicates that this is not the case, and the government has continued to perpetuate its unpopular measures. That is not an encouraging sign. On this score, Comrade Speaker, I, like my colleagues and all right-thinking Guyanese, cannot support Budget 2019. I urge the government to recall the budget and return it with a more realistic plan.
Tell them.
Comrade Speaker, to this end, as Speaker, I wonder if I can receive your support. Thank you.